a little bit of a facelift. The floor is much more elaborate. We're gonna just livening it up, making it a little busier everywhere. Just kind of more cool stuff.
It's got a lot more light.
Floor.
Open and full of positivity.
Some nice, yeah. There's the awesome flower. It's a clear coating that goes over and makes everything shiny. When it dries, it's very clean and shiny. And of course, we have a lot more art added since the last time we checked in. But this is the phase on the Peace on Earth center. That's the center dot. At the Shakate. Shakate is another flower of awesomeness, helping out. That's the center dot. At the center, it's gold for compassion, the complexion of the goddess, whose embodiment is compassion. So I was just saying that this guitar has a voice, not a very good one right now, and the drum has a voice. It's a very organic voice. And kind of music that involves electronic or plug-in instruments. Some of it's so fake they tweak all the voices too, like that. You know, Bye Bye Miss American Pie. I've always listened to that song and thought of it as somewhat prophetic. End of the American dream. And you know where it's all going, this phantasmagorical world we live in. I mean, previous to invented recording, if you wanted to hear music or make music, you didn't have anything to plug into. You had to take organic instruments and raise your voice. There's the beginning stage when every person's in darkness, and then there's the clearing stage. That's compared to when the first rays of sun arise. And then there's the enlightened stage. Fully enlightened being is when the sun is completely risen. And it takes a long time to get there, and a lot of hard work and sincerity, key ingredient. And then you have to be able to maintain that plane. So at first, even though we don't deserve the clearing stage, that, you know, whenever a person starts to believe in something, the Great Spirit, whether it's ghosts or karma or metaphysical things or crystals, or even like the movie The Secret, you know, where they say, whatever you want, just believe that you're going to get it, and then you get it. All of that's not the ultimate truth. That's just like the thing when we take one step towards the other side of reality. The other side being the spiritual side, or the more subtle material side, then from the highest place, sanctioned down all the way to the angels, or what we call demigods, and just to those who are right beyond the other side of this realm. If you believe in ghosts, for example, that knocking sound you hear at night that spooks you, it probably was, but it has to be sanctioned. But there's a lot of sanctioning for reciprocation from the other side when someone starts their spiritual path, so that the person will really start to believe in it. They get a dose of the clearing stage, when really we only karmically we deserve the dark stage. And it would be really hard to strive if we didn't get a taste. There's a lot of people who think that they're very spiritual right in the beginning. They're all in that age, you know, 17 to 23, 25, and some people have even been so deluded, say that they're God, you know, and weird stuff like that, and they've realized that they're God. From India, I'm God, you're God, it's all one, where in fact the only way we can become one with God is one with the will of God. We're still separate. We got to figure out how I can let go of my will and do God's will. One with the purity of God, as the Bible says, be perfect just as your Father in heaven is perfect. You know, we're spiritual. One drop of water has the same qualities as the ocean. So we have the same quality as God, you know, so we can be one with God's purity. And if we can't have the absolute purity of all our desires being perfectly aligned with God, at least we can have pure intentions. We talk about that, the 4 H's: humble, happy, helpful, and honest. And that'll help you straighten out your behavior. One with the will of God, one with the purity of God, And just like a boy and a girl when they love each other, there's two entities, but the feeling, the experience is one. So in that rapture of love, we have a oneness of experience of love with God. And yeah, so those, but we don't ever actually merge with God. That was later. That was a philosophy invented later in India to resemble Buddhism, and it created an army, so to speak, of renunciates in India who believed that, and it basically chased all the Buddhists out of India. It was so similar to Buddhism, but more powerful because it was theistic, and people in India wanted to get back to their roots, and the Buddhists all left India. It was like an exodus of Buddhists out of India. There weren't hardly any Buddhists left. And then they went east, were eating dogs and all kinds of abominable things, and these countries, China, Tibet, Malaysia, Japan, and so forth, they got the ahimsa, the philosophy of nonviolence. And why Buddha initially appeared was actually Buddha was predicted as he's an incarnation of Vishnu. He had all the 64 divine characteristics of an incarnation. It was predicted in the scriptures, the place of his birth, the time of his birth, the name of his mother, all of his activities were predicted because he was an incarnation. That's how you know if someone's an incarnation. So there's so many bogus incarnations that declare themselves an incarnation because they may have been yogis doing magic tricks or something, making flames come out of their head, or reading people's minds or whatever, and so people who have a poor fund of knowledge, they go to these rascals and they, declare that that person's an incarnation, or he declares it, and then he gets defeated by his own stupid activities. And this is the bogus incarnations. There's a lot of them on the planet. So what happens is, after you get all these experiences, then Great Spirit takes those experiences away. You have this taste for this spiritual life, but then it's taken away. Then you have to strive by proper means. You think, well, I've learned a lot about this and that. I was really inspired and I read this and that. Now let me get into a tradition and let me focus on it really solidly. It makes gradual advancement over decades to a real stable place in consciousness. And it's said that we've been in this material world for millions of births. That's from the scriptures of India, and Buddha says that somewhere in the oceans of the world there's a wooden ring floating around in all the oceans, one wooden ring, and one tortoise looking to go put his head up through that wooden ring. And that's how rare this human birth is. So we go through, in India it says 8,400,000 species of life. We run away from the spiritual world. We put down into the animal and the plants and even amoebas. Anything that goes through the 6 transformations, birth, growth, maturity, producing offspring, dwindling and dying, it has a soul. Intelligent trees, they turn towards the sun in the morning. The flowers open when the sun, they're doing stuff. But there's 3 types of living entities, and it's described in the Bhagavad Gita. You can't perceive it. That's compared to the non-moving living entities. People go down and they cut down a tree, and they just mercilessly just kill this entity, but they don't see the soul in it. And then those who are in the animal, that's like a child in the womb, covered. The living entity is covered. Then the next analogy, the next higher one, is like a mirror or a glass is covered with dust. So that's the mental plane, eating, sleeping, defending, and mating. Those are the animal, everything from the ant to the elephant. All the animals in the whole animal kingdom, they can move. And they're going through they're doing these 4 things over and over. You can see that they have a mental plane that is pretty much animalistic. And so that's the living entity that's graduated up to the animal kingdom. It's the same living entity as us. We're the jiva soul, the jivatma. And then above that is the smoke-smothered fire analogy. So now we have the human form of life. And some people are very dull and non-spiritual and angry and mean and all these kind of low qualities of humans. But then there's those who are very refined and, they're non-violent diet, vegetarian, very peaceful. They don't have vices. They have simple living and high thinking. And that's not even spiritual yet. That's just mode of goodness type living. And that mode of goodness type living is the springboard to higher consciousness.